So I want to talk about small changes that we can make. We already know lots of things. We don't need lots more training. We just need to hone what's already there. So just very briefly, a little bit about who I am. I'm the founder of Core Plus Tuition, a multi-subject tuition business that's grown from little old me to a thriving multi-tutor organisation. As the business grew, other business owners started asking me for advice, and that's led me to become a marketing mentor and launch Make Your Marketing Count, where I support service-based business owners with practical, clarity-led marketing. It's not always about learning more, it's about picking out what you already know and doing it better often. Most business owners believe the answer to growing their business is more social media, more posting, more emails, more followers, more leads. And we've talked about that today. That's not necessarily where we want to be. So, good news is actually, for most business owners, there are already people watching. There's people interested. There's people thinking about working with you, unless you're at 0 followers, which most of you are not going to be. But those people that are watching are quietly dropping off. 9 times out of 10, that's not because your service isn't good enough. It's not because your offer isn't good enough. It's because something in the journey isn't clear or isn't quite resonating. If someone has to think too hard, work too hard, or figure out how to work with you, they're not going to. Life is busy. We know that. So before you add more noise, which is what somebody else mentioned this morning, but before you try and bring in more people, invest more money, or build more funnels, ask yourself one simple question. Where are the people leaking out? So, when most people think about marketing, they think about the discovery side of things. They think their social media, website, Google searches, referrals, maybe even ads or local listings. And of course, those things matter. They get you discovered, they get your attention, they open the door. That is just the start of your marketing. It actually goes much, much further than that. It's any point where someone is interacting with your business or you're communicating about your business. It includes how people inquire with you, what happens after they inquire, their actual experience with you, how you follow up, and how clear and reassuring your process feels. All of that is your marketing. So if you're investing all of your marketing time just in getting people interested, you need to be asking another question. Are you actually converting them into paying clients? Or are you just getting them to see that you exist? So in the businesses I work with, there are 3 gaps that come up time and time again in the client journey. The first gap is unclear next steps. When we talk about unclear next steps, this isn't just about one call to action at the end of the post. At every point in your client journey, your audience should know exactly what their next step is. People can like your content, follow you. They could even be thinking, this is exactly what I need. But if they're not clear on what to do at that moment, they're going to pause. They're going to enter that freeze mode of, I'm not sure what to do next. This person looks great, but I just don't know how to work with them. And once they get to that point, quite often they won't come back. Too many options can also do the same thing. It can cause friction. It might feel helpful to us to offer email, phone call, discovery call, fill in this form, but actually for the client, it's creating another decision point and you're creating another moment for freeze. People want it to be easy. They just want to be told what to do to be able to work with you. So people aren't stopping because they're not interested. They're stopping because they either don't know how to move forward or there's too many choices to move forward. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates action. So try and make sure that there's clarity in your processes. The second trust gap is assumed understanding. When you're really close to something, i.e., your business, it's easy for you to assume that other people see it the way you do. And it's just as easy to forget that they can't see or don't yet understand. Because we're so close to our own businesses, we know how processes work, we know how the journey's supposed to flow, we know how the service looks, and we forget what it's like to be new. You might recognize this if you've ever worked with a VA and realized how different their understanding of your business is to yours. The same is true for your clients. What feels obvious to you isn't obvious to someone seeing your business for the first time. You understand your processes, you understand what happens after they inquire, you understand what the service looks like, but your client doesn't have that context. So explaining the obvious really matters, not because you're trying to patronize people, but because you're reassuring them. Confusion doesn't usually show up as questions. It shows up as silence. People don't say, I'm confused, I feel unsure, I feel a little bit anxious because I don't know what your service is going to look like. They just don't move forward. And yet again, we end up in this freeze moment. The next trust gap is no follow-up. And this happens so often in business. Someone inquires, you respond, and then silence. I've been there with my own clients. I assumed that they weren't interested, that they're going to get back to me if they want the service. And I don't want to feel pushy. I want it to feel aligned. I don't want to push them into the sale. But the reframe here is really important. Silence doesn't actually mean no. It usually means life got really busy or they weren't quite ready to make a decision. It means that their kids interrupted them halfway through replying to your message, or it means that the dinner was ready and they needed to put their phone down. So following up isn't pushy, it's actually professional. You're not chasing the people, you're keeping the conversation open. And often that follow up is the thing that gives someone the confidence to move forward. You cared enough to follow up, especially if the next steps for them weren't clear. In my own business, following up made a real difference, not because people feel pressured, but because they genuinely felt supported. So, when something isn't working in our business, our instinct is to add more. But if there's gaps in your client journey, bringing more people in just means that more people are going to leak out. Growth doesn't always come from adding more, and we've talked about that all day. It often comes from fixing what's already there. The mindset shift here is you don't need to fix everything. One small intentional change in the right place can make a big difference. Small needle changes have massive ripple effects. So don't feel like you need to do everything. So it's not about overhauling everything. It's not about overhauling your whole client journey. And to be honest, that's not how I teach business. My mantra is progress over perfection. Every small move, every small step forward, every change you make is going to move your business forward. All of those little changes then add up. So there may be things to your parts of your client journey that are absolutely fine. But I do want you to think about, where do people hesitate? Where does the flow slow down? Where do you get the same questions again and again? Where do conversations stop or go quiet? That's where your leak is. Choose that one place in your client journey, make that step feel clearer and simpler. It might be explaining one thing you've been assuming, making the one step more obvious, adding a single follow-up when someone goes quiet. One small intentional change done properly is how you stop the leaks. It's how you bring more money into your business without adding hours to your to-do list, to give you the time to do all those other wonderful things everyone's been talking about today. Remember, one action, one leak, one small change. I'll leave you with this. Before you spend time bringing more people into your business, make sure you're not quietly losing the ones who are already interested. You don't need to do all the things, you don't need to fix everything, and you're not behind. One small intentional change in the right place can really make a big difference. If you'd like to stay in my world and keep the conversation going, talking about more practical marketing tips, I have a free Facebook group called Make Your Marketing Count, where we can talk about marketing together. You can scan the QR code that is on the screen now.
Thank you, Emma. Just leave that up there so people can see the QR code there. It's really interesting what you say about identifying the gaps and then fixing the leak. And it's just such a simple concept, but so overlooked by so many. When I want help people to help me with my business, I always look for my gaps. I identify my gaps first and then fix them. But it's a bit like plumbing, isn't it? If you've got a dripping tap, you don't go and get a whole new central heating system. You fix the bit that's leaking. And so what's your advice? Where does somebody start to look at that and they think, right, something's not working? Um, I can share from my perspective, but what would you say is the first starting point?
I think literally take the time, sit down and look at past customers, past clients, what's happened, well, the ones that have come all the way, but also the ones that stopped halfway, and being really like conscious of those key performance indicators. Are you getting loads of discovery calls and then they're dropping off, or are they not even getting to the discovery call point? Being aware of those things will help you identify exactly at what point in that journey the leak is happening. Because some people will push through and persevere, and it comes to those color types, I guess. Those people that know what they want are going to keep going. But actually, if they're more of a quiet type, they're going to drop off earlier. So being aware of it and watching it constantly.
Yeah. So Emma Michael said here, fortune is in the follow-up. Now, we all hear about follow-up, and I've heard one of the gurus say, follow up 7 times. There's a point where you follow up and you think, oh my God, am I being too much here? Am I actually putting people off by following up? But what's the fine balance between following up too much and just simply ghosting you?
I think it goes back to what everybody else has said this morning. It's about doing it in an aligned way. So there's no one size fits all. That's not how I teach business. It's about doing it in a way that feels comfortable to you. I do follow up 7 times, particularly in the tuition business. But it's the first one is I'm just checking that you got the information and that you've got the prices and that you're okay. The second one is, do you want to book a discovery call? It's a very natural progression. And the last one is, it doesn't seem like the right time for you right now. So I'm going to remove you off my list. Just let me know if you want to talk again. And at that point, that turns so many people around because they're like, no, 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 it wasn't that I'd forgotten about you. I just hadn't got the time. And it starts that conversation again. So don't be afraid to say, actually, I'm not going to contact you again because it doesn't seem like the right time. And just do it in a really casual way.
And life happens, and we've talked about this today, people putting boundaries in, especially this year. And I've put my own boundaries in. I used to respond to emails at night. I no longer do. I flag them and think, right, that needs a response. And then you start a new day, something else happens. And quite often people will email me something. I flag it to go back to later and then forget. So actually, the follow up is a great reminder in some respects, because when you're dealing with people that have got multiple emails, and I mean, I get on average 300 emails a day plus messages and everything else, that you can't keep track of all that. And so sometimes you do forget that you've got to go back to somebody.
I think that's the mindset shift, isn't it? We feel like we shouldn't because we're being pushy, but actually, it's genuinely helpful for some people. And I think if we can keep that in our mind rather than feeling pushy, that helps you do the thing and actually get those follow ups and those sales.
Yeah. And it's scheduling time, isn't it? I've now scheduled time every week to go back and check all those flagged. I've got a flagging system. I've got an action system. I've got a pinned email system. It's having the right systems in place, isn't it, to ensure that you've got the systems and processes, not only for the customer journey, understanding what they want, but actually having all the things in place.
100%. I love a spreadsheet. I've got a big follow-up spreadsheet where we keep track of everything. And I time block as well. So I make sure that there's follow-ups every day, just 10 minutes every day to make sure that I've checked in with people.
Yeah, I've got a session in my diary every morning for an hour, and that is my sales activity session. And that happens every single day. And sales activity can be anything, including follow-ups. But I've also now got a 30-minute session in there for personal outreach. And that is where, people have messaged me and I need to go back to them, or I need to reach out to people in a slightly different way. And it's just a different way of doing things. And it's actually reaping rewards already because I've structured the time in my diary to do that.
Yeah, I think someone's just put about they've got the spreadsheets, but they don't
Yeah.
look at them. And that time blocking definitely helps that. Knowing that every day I go and open that spreadsheet and I just double check, is there anyone I need to check with today? And it's there in my diary to make sure I do it and open the spreadsheet.
And I have mine sitting on my desktop. And the reason I have it sitting on my desktop is when I power up in the morning, it's right there in front of me. That's a really insightful session, Emma. Please go back and read all the comments because there's some great comments in there. And fantastic. Oh, spreadsheets, cool blue energy. I didn't know I got any cool blue energy in me, but I love a
I'm a
spreadsheet.
blue red, just like you, Sandra.
Thank you for that, Emma.
Thank you.
Right, okay, and we are going to be moving on to another topic now, a topic which is really high up on the agenda right now. She's probably not ready because we've got 2 or 3 minutes. So has anybody got any questions about anything that they'd like to ask in the